Senators.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's nice to be on this side. For the record, my name is Jeannie Forrester, the Senator for District 2, representing 27 communities in the counties of Belknap, Grafton, and Merrimack. This morning, I'm here to introduce Senate Bill 99, an act relative to the Site Evaluation Committee. The original intent of this bill was to update New Hampshire Site Evaluation Committee's procedures for the review, approval, monitoring, and enforcement of compliance in the planning, siting, construction, and operation of energy facilities. With the advent of changes in national, regional, and state regulation of energy transmission facilities over the last decade, it seemed only logical that a conscientious legislature would want to ensure we are keeping up with the times. Last week, several legislators met with the chair of the Site Evaluation Committee to review the legislation. Before we started to review the legislation, the Site Evaluation Committee chair advised that the system was at a breaking point. Commissioner Burak advised that we should not tinker around the edges and that a fresh and comprehensive look was warranted. He advised that the evolution in technologies combined with budget cuts and time spent in litigation is causing a real significant strain on the various agencies who sit on the committee. As a result of this meeting, we significantly amended the bill by removing all the language and inserting language to do two things. First, as now amended, Senate Bill 99 says the Site Evaluation Committee shall not accept any applications or issue any certificates for new electric energy generating facilities or elective electric transmission facilities for a period of 1 year following the effective date of this act. The purpose of this moratorium is to provide the state with an opportunity to conduct a full review of the capacity of the Site Evaluation Committee as presently structured and funded to meet the charges set forth in the purpose statement of RSA 162H1:1. Second, the Office of Energy and Planning will direct a study of current site evaluation criteria and identify recommendations that address funding needs, future technology expertise requirements, and staff, and make a report on or before December 1st, 2013. This study could consider questions like, should we be providing a funding source for the SEC to be able to hire their own experts? Should we be asking for an application fee that might be held in a fund to pay for litigation or experts? What about economic impact analysis on land values and tourism? Should Site Evaluation Committee's authority be expanded to consider how many energy projects should be sited in one or more areas, or should oversight reside in some other place, for instance, the state energy plan? Senate Bill 99 as amended is intended to hit the pause button on elective renewable energy projects until comprehensive modifications to the Site Evaluation Committee are made. This will ensure that the Site Evaluation Committee has the necessary tools to do an effective review of energy projects without undue stress on human and financial resources. It will also ensure that the state's mission of maintaining a balance between the environment and the need for new energy facilities, if any, in New Hampshire is achieved. Now, some will claim that this legislation will create a chill on development. And I'll tell you today that the chill is already here, very real and very damaging, because there is no oversight, no comprehensive consideration of the negative impact on landscape, land values, and tourism. There is a chill on land values, a chill on home sales, and a chill up and down the spines of New Hampshire residents and New Hampshire businesses as they consider if anyone is looking out for them. I suspect today you will hear testimony to that effect. Let's make sure our Site Evaluation Committee has the resources to make good decisions in New Hampshire's interests, a balance between the environment and the need, if any, for new energy facilities in New Hampshire. I'm here today representing 27 communities in District 2. These communities could just as well be your communities tomorrow. I urge you to listen carefully to their testimony, and I urge you to support Ox Pass on Senate Bill 99. Thank you.
Many of them come to enjoy the nature tourism that we offer in this state, with the beautiful and pristine vistas of the mountains and the famous White Mountains. We need to be very careful. That is our national treasure, and it's also our national treasury and our state treasury. And I very urge you all to consider that Manchester, Nashua, and those areas have a lot at stake as well, and those people in those areas have a lot at stake as well with this. And I urge you to support the moratorium so I and others have an opportunity to allow the people to take part in the process of being more informed and to be able to also engage in the green energy discussions that are going on. I'm sure the Concord, Manchester, and Nashua individuals would like to be able to take part in becoming more of a part of developing green energy alternatives and conservation. And I know that they're not a part of that discussion, and we need to get that going, and we need to do it now, and we need time to do that. The industry has full-time people working on their behalf, but organizers like myself work on a part-time basis, and we need time. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl Lewis, and I'm an intervener in the Groton Wind Project. I ask you to support SB99 for a number of reasons, but most specifically because the SEC process needs to be revamped before any new energy projects are approved. As an active participant throughout the entire SEC process for Groton Wind, I was dismayed to learn the attorneys representing Iberdrola, the wind developer, had previously sat on this site evaluation committee. In fact, one of the attorneys, Douglas Patch, who's here today, had been the chairman of the SEC. Even more troubling is the fact that Thomas Getz, who was the chairman of the SEC during the recent Groton Wind project, has left state employment, is now in private practice, and now represents wind developers. It appears to us that this is quite a biased process when the wind developer has an upper hand over all the interveners and everybody else that's involved in this process, including the municipalities. If you check the SEC website, you will find that all the wind developers are now being represented by former SEC members. We believe this is a clear conflict of interest. And without a moratorium, this significant conflict of interest will continue today and through the rest of the year. As the other Groton Wind interveners today have already mentioned, there are real problems going on with Groton Wind. I won't repeat those, but what I do ask is I would urge you, if there's not a vote today on this bill, that you spend time looking on the SEC website. You look up the Groton Wind transcripts for their final day of deliberations, which is April 11th. I think you may be surprised at what actually takes place in these SEC deliberations. Secondly, I would also urge you to read the 2013 issues, which are currently taking place with Groton Wind, and I think you'll also be surprised to learn how the SEC is handling the oversight and enforcements of some clear violations which have taken place. And finally, with all due respect, Senator Odell, I know that you're from the town of Leominster, and I recognize that many of the residents there have had a very positive experience with the wind farm and Iberdrola as well, but I can assure you that does not happen everywhere. And I ask you to take that into consideration, that just because your experience has been a good one does not mean that that's going to be the continuation for all these other projects that may take place in the state in the future. That there are some real issues that need to be addressed prior to going forward with any others. So again, I ask you to support SB99 and to hold off on allowing any new projects until the SEC can have fresh guidelines, have oversight, and have accountability. Thank you very much for your time.
To SB99. On the afternoon of March 7th, I attended a work session of the House of Representatives Science, Technology, and Energy Committee. The work session was to study the SEC's site approval process from start to finish. The start is most often the applicant acquiring land for a project siting. The finish is the SEC's approval or denial of a certificate. Site Evaluation Chairman Thomas Burrick delivered the most powerful statement of the afternoon. He stated that due to the increase in the number of applications received over the years, combined with the fact that the committee already has 23 certificates to oversee for compliance, he sees the Site Evaluation Committee as reaching a breaking point. He went on to say the committee's current approach will not be sustainable. A statement by the chairman of this magnitude in itself is grounds for a moratorium. The purpose of the moratorium, as written in the amendment to SB99, is to provide the state with an opportunity to conduct a full review of the capacity of the Site Evaluation Committee. When a committee warns the state's House of Representatives that a breaking point is near, corrective action must be taken to protect both companies and homeowners. As we sit here, Antrim Wind is offering $40,000 to the Antrim Town Selectmen in mitigation before they appeal the latest SEC decision. Iberdrola Renewables is close to submitting an application to Wild Metals Industry Wind Facilities. Northern Pass Electric Transmission Facility will be seeking SEC approval. What will happen if the amendment SB99 is not passed? Applications will continue to be submitted to a committee which, in the chairman's own word, is near the breaking point.
Last summer, I sat right in the seat here where Senator Prescott was sitting, and this was in the 361 Commission, and it had to do with burying transmission lines. The conclusion of the 361 Commission is that transmission lines can be buried. They can be buried in the state's rights of way. This would be a welcome alternative to what's being proposed now. I am for renewable energy. I think it's the future. We need to embrace it. But we need to look at the mistakes that other states have made. The state of California now has achieved 44% of its electrical demand from renewable sources. What a wonderful thing. But what that has done is the reliable producers of electricity, those people who run gas turbines, oil, or atomic and so forth, they have built their facilities anticipating 100% use of their power. So when you have 44% reliable, that means they can only utilize 66% of their power. What that means is they can no longer repair and keep their plants in compliance with California law. So what are they doing? They're decommissioning their normal, reliable sources of energy to take renewable energy in its place. So what the result is, California is experiencing brownouts and there are talks of blackouts. California has a three-tiered system of charging for electricity. That three-tiered system, the top tier is anticipated this summer of being 53 cents per kilowatt hour. This was in an article in the Wall Street Journal 3 weeks ago. Do we want to end up the same way as California is? Right now, we have an SEC commission, we have a commissioner that came down, and quite frankly, I don't have much confidence in a commissioner that can't tell me the first time it's rejected an application for a power plant, and he can't tell you if that order has been issued, what is in that order, and why that application was denied. We need this moratorium. We need it now so the SEC can get its house in order so we can protect the rights, the property rights of the people of this state. We produce more energy than we use. Yet we pay the 6th highest rates in the country for electrical energy. Why? You think ISO is your friend? You think these people are doing us in New Hampshire a big favor? We need to evaluate the system. We need to evaluate it. We need to impose a moratorium. And Senator Odell, you asked what other industry has ever had a moratorium slapped on it? In the late 80s, I was in the condominium development business. And I want to tell you, we had a moratorium slapped on us. And was it a good thing? Well, in hindsight, it was. At that time, it was very painful. But it was the right thing to do. And that's what I'm asking you to do, is to enact this moratorium, do the right thing for the people of New Hampshire. Thank you.
I'm Martha Richards from Holderness, one of the Grafton County Commissioners, and I think I probably speak for the majority of my constituents in the 17 towns that I cover. For the record, I want to state that both Commissioner Ray Burton and I support Senate Bill 99. Moratorium, a quick definition, states it as a formally agreed period during which an activity is halted or a planned activity is postponed. Clearly, as compared to what some are saying, this bill is not in any way designed to permanently stop any and all energy projects forever. It is being crafted to give the overburdened, overwhelmed, understaffed, and underfinanced Site Evaluation Committee time to appropriately review the plethora of energy applications it is receiving. Applications for energy projects that aren't needed to keep the lights on in our state. Chairman Burak and other members and staff of the New Hampshire SEC have concerns about reviewing these applications, and we and thousands of others living along the right-of-ways and ridge lines primed for wind turbine development are already under siege with ruined views and tumbling real estate values. We are facing a dire future if these projects are green-lighted without adequate time, personnel, funding, and scientific study. This moratorium would allow everyone to sit back, catch their breath, organize a plan, set up independent engineers, biologists, land experts, all of whom have no ties to the energy companies looking to confiscate our lands for their use without any fair compensation for our losses. These projects will affect all of New Hampshire in one way or another and in due time. The ISO New England maps of New Hampshire look like a plate of spaghetti with crisscrossing lines and clusters of hundreds of dots indicating wind towers. New Hampshire needs a comprehensive energy policy, and passing Senate Bill 99 will allow this to be accomplished without outside or corporate or foreign pressure. In my area, for example, our viewshed region includes wind turbines, 60-foot wooden poles carrying their power down a major highway, a new huge substation on a main road for we wonder how many wind turbines, and we are facing the potential for 2.5 miles of possible 90 to 135-foot Tinker Toy towers of 1970s vintage going down our right-of-way. All of this has happened in less than 2 years and within 6 miles of the center of New Hampshire. Our realtors tell us that sales are completely halted when a buyer hears even a whiff of the idea that large power lines or wind turbines could be built nearby. Young families want to move away from these proposed projects for health and safety reasons, but the possibility of a sale of their property is dead in the water. Putting a temporary hold on the acceptance of any SEC applications or the issuance of any new approvals would allow for the thorough study of health issues like shadow flicker from the wind blades or the effects from the electromagnetic fields of high-tension power lines, the decimation of our ridge lines for towers, the real estate impact, the ruination of many nearby water sources, the tax impact on towns and individuals, how to figure the decommissioning costs. This is a huge issue for these little towns. In 15, 20, 40 years with binding legal documents, let alone the acceptable idea of burying these power lines as other states are mandating. Our towns are run by well-meaning citizens who are being blindsided by these slick, high-powered corporations. Our town folks need training on how to plan for well-regulated and safe growth. All issues that during a breathing period, a moratorium could be studied appropriately as New Hampshire grapples with our future power needs. I urge you to vote yes on Senate Bill 99 to allow the SEC to do its job efficiently, legally, independently, to avoid uncertainty and costly litigation, and to be funded appropriately to carry out its many duties in a logical and orderly fashion. Thank you.
My name is Pamela Martin. I'm from Plymouth. ISO New England recently released a study entitled Energy Efficiency Forecast, which reports electricity consumption in all New England states is decreasing. New Hampshire's all-time peak demand was set in 2006. And I have a copy of this, and I would like to submit it. Before I do, though, I just want to read one thing. It was on page 22. It says, New Hampshire, the energy efficiency forecast projects lower demand levels. As a result, 10 upgrades of transmission lines and other equipment can be deferred to years beyond 2020. So I would like to submit this.
committee. Very much appreciate your written testimony. Thank you very much.
I have something else to say.
Oh, certainly. You still have another minute.
Thank you. Yet despite the fact that consumers are taking steps to be more energy efficient and electricity consumption continues to decrease, multiple energy projects are being introduced with no consideration of the impact on New Hampshire. Industrial wind projects are sprouting up like mushrooms, even though it has been shown over and over again that New Hampshire doesn't have enough wind or consistent wind to make these projects economical, but they do destroy property values, tourism dollars, and the bird and bat populations. Northern Pass and these industrial wind projects are dividing the state into warring factions. The Chambers of Commerce in southern New Hampshire don't want anything to get in their way of so-called cheap electricity. The Chambers of Commerce in Plymouth and Littleton and further north are opposed because of the economic impact they see that's already happening in the lakes regions and mountains. One objection you will hear today will be that we shouldn't change the rules after they've already been started in the process. We shouldn't change horses in the middle of the stream. This isn't a stream, this is a raging river, a tsunami of projects coming our way. There are at least 4 major energy proposals aimed at the lakes regions and mountains which have the potential of changing the landscape of New Hampshire forever. Right now is precisely the time to address these issues. To wait would be catastrophic. They will say that a moratorium would be a bad message for business. These energy proposals are already having a negative effect on existing businesses, and that's why the Central and Northern Chambers of Commerce voted against Northern Pass. The union leader had an article the other day about possible brownouts in New England, but New Hampshire has more electricity than we need. It's southern New England that wants more electricity, not New Hampshire. I believe in helping a neighbor, but if not, if it means economic suicide for New Hampshire. So if New Hampshire doesn't need the electricity, New Hampshire isn't presently getting any of the renewable credits from their industrial wind projects, and large-scale hydro isn't even designated as renewable for the state of New Hampshire. So those credits from Northern Pass will go to Connecticut and Massachusetts along with electricity. Why in the world would New Hampshire agree to any of these projects?
2 minutes.
We're getting absolutely nothing but a scar down the center of our state and ruined ridgelines. As the Romans say, cui bono, who benefits? We don't, and they do. I'm asking for a moratorium on all electricity projects until a fair and responsible energy policy has been formulated, which does not sacrifice one part of the state for the benefit of another. A policy that promotes energy efficiency rather than encourages waste and increased consumption. A policy which takes into consideration New Hampshire's economic dependence upon tourism, property values, and our New England character and way of life. An energy policy which doesn't designate New Hampshire as a renewable energy provider and power corridor from Massachusetts and Connecticut so that they don't have to approve Cape Wind or any other unsightly power projects in their beautiful states.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Will Abbott. I work for the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. I have testimony that I'm not going to review, but basically, as I've been listening, it seems that there's a pretty good consensus that a comprehensive review of the Site Evaluation Committee is in order. It seems like everybody agrees with that. Maybe there's some difference of opinion of the urgency of the need. We would argue that there is an urgency. We would argue that you should separate this from all other energy discussions that the legislature sanctions this session. And we would argue that there's a compelling argument to do the moratorium that you've heard about. I'd like to just focus on one issue that the Forest Society is most concerned about to put the moratorium in context. From our perspective, one of the purposes of having a site evaluation committee is to balance the environment with energy development. We need electricity. We don't dispute that. The issue is, what do you do when there's a conflict? And how do you approach the resolution of those conflicts? And I think there's been an enormous public outpouring of concern about all sorts of different projects, largely driven by changes in the energy marketplace. And those concerns need to be addressed somehow. And I would argue, I've been pondering Senator Odell's question, and I would pose the question back this way. If the 5 of you conclude that there's a public interest served by putting a 12-month moratorium in place in order to motivate all of the stakeholders to do justice to the need that everybody seems to agree exists to have a comprehensive review, what's the downside? So I'd leave you with that, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions?